Everybody loves Zuko, and so do academics. There are so many goddamn studies about him, and the show as a whole is rather baffling. As for this doctoral dissertation explained, not only is Avatar The Last Airbender an artifact in the public space, which teaches public pedagogy, children and young adolescents are likely to identify with the characters, especially the morally ambiguous character Zuko. Finally, young viewers are likely to learn social behaviors based on rewards and punishments received by Zuko as he navigates his character journey. Hot Boy Zuko has a lot of problems in life. One of them is his feelings of shame. As Dixon and Grindelwald defined, shame results when perceptions of negative social evaluation are transformed into negative self-evaluation. I just realized that's two quotes back to back. I feel like a robot now. Subsequently, Zuko's shame is rooted in the entanglement of two different identities. The shame of being a failed son and the shame of being a failed nationalist.
Please, Father! I only had the Fire Nation's best interest at heart.
You will learn respect, and suffering will be your teacher.
The purpose of this video is to examine his little mopey brain, because my patrons picked this and I was like, cool bro.
Something changing your mind.
Where the f do I begin? I'm gonna go ahead and introduce some key concepts first. Zuko's shame is deeply tied to his sense of honor. His story truly begins when he questioned the honor of a general's plan by implying it betrays the young soldiers being mobilized.
You can't sacrifice an entire division like that! Those soldiers love and defend our nation. How can you betray them?
He dishonored this dude and soon dishonored himself by refusing to fight his father. It was not in Zuko's place to speak up, and not in his place to not fight. As Bataru argued, in this way the creators based much of Zuko's early journey for his honor on Confucian principles of obeying one's parents and obtaining Confucian honor. Furthermore, Zuko's transgressions is also deeply rooted in his norm violations because the significance of his shame is deeply linked to the audience around him. A shame which is a combination of embarrassment and guilt. And as Libra argued, I think these are continuous for the Japanese under a single word. Haji. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, I'm not weeb enough. The point is, Zuko's deep level of guilt and shame that's afflicted in his entire total being doesn't start with the self, it begins with those around him. As a result, I'm gonna now analyze the episode Zuko Alone as a case study, because it takes all of this and puts it on display in one of the most beautiful 20 minutes ever. Zuko walks through a wooden bridge that's barely keeping together. Then he's prepared to take out his sword when he notices a camp, but then it's only a couple with a pregnant woman. He then carries on with a look of guilt. Zuko's story here is pretty masterfully established in just a few seconds. He's someone who walks a path of uncertainty, influenced by violent temptations, but he can't stop his own heart from valuing love, which is anchored by the sight of his mother leaving, a thought that keeps him awake. What fostered this violent impulse was his nationalistic upbringing, something that's represented by some dickhole Earth Kingdom soldiers at the local village.
Those soldiers are supposed to protect us from the Fire Nation, but they're just a bunch of thugs.
As the main antagonists of the episode, they symbolize the moral superiority nationalism can grant, but also the dangers of its narcissism. The soldiers are morally exempt here.
Thanks for your contribution. The army appreciates your support.
Zuko is rewarded when he protects the kid who threw an egg at the soldiers. At his home, the parents are impressed by how he stood up to them and respects his privacy.
He doesn't have to say who he is if he doesn't want to, Seela. Anyone who can hold his own against those bully soldiers is welcome here.
In this simple place, Zuko inherits the responsibility left by the kid's big brother who left for the war. He was a real soldier, not these thugs. The purpose of Zuko Alone is to show Zuko alone. The end. It does so by exploring the ways Zuko's anticipation for shame has created wars in his mind. In the first flashback, the two roots in his life are represented, his sister and mother. When he was a child, he was taught to be cruel.
Hey Mom, wanna see how Azula feeds turtle ducks?
Zuko, why would you do that?
But his mom taught him empathy with humor. Zuko is given an education in respecting those around him, but then Azula gets him to join their game in order to trick him into falling into a pond with May. To her, he is the joke. He isn't deserving of respect, and the rules around him can be used to embarrass him.
Maybe you could find a nice Earth Kingdom family to adopt you.
Stop it!
In fact, arguably, that's their purpose. They then hear about Uncle Iroh's attack on Ba Sing Se, in which he and Azula react with a giggle.
If we don't burn it to the ground first.
Zuko was raised by the belief that his own interest must always support the Fire Nations, especially at the cost of another's, while this nationalism is also a proxy for his own selfish means.
If Uncle doesn't make it back from war, then Dad would be next in line to be Fire Lord, wouldn't he?
But he also carries a more universal respect towards all the people around him, all the cultures.
For Zuko, a pearl dagger from the general who surrendered when we broke through the outer wall. Note the inscription and the superior craftsmanship.
Never give up without a fight.
Something which has grown into becoming more of a personally constructed sense of honor. This is the central tension to his entire life moving forward.
Iroh has lost his son.
What's gonna happen to my brother?
Zuko doesn't know whether or not his role in the world makes it better or worse, and shame is the chain which bounds him to a collection of values which blinds him.
I'm going to find Sensu and bring him back.
The two halves of Zuko, the destructive Fire Nation prince who's all country and selfishness, and the son who's always thinking about the missing mother in his life, are contradicting forces, demanding opposite actions from him. But then there's a moment where he begins to reconcile them. Back in the barn, as Zuko is sleeping, the son takes the sword to play with in the field, reminiscent of the way Zuko was long ago. Curious and excited with the world, someone with no anticipation of embarrassment. Zuko approaches him and teaches him.
Keep in mind, these are dual swords. Two halves of a single weapon. Don't think of them as separate, because they're not. They're just two different parts of the same whole.
There are many ways to interpret these words in the confines of this episode. Zuko is talking to his younger self, the child which died, and he longs for to be whole again with. Or he's talking about the self he's hiding with right now, the identity of the enemy prince, which his shame is rooted in. Or perhaps it is in reference to the division which shame created inside him, the half of him who wishes to make the world better, and the half which wants to serve and make his country better. Regardless, Zuko begins to feel whole by just being someone this boy appreciates, someone he would have appreciated in his own childhood. He's not the prince, he's just the kind of person his mother would have been proud of. Shame, it seems, could be the glue that holds relationships and societies together, and unacknowledged shame, the force that blows them apart. But then the mother begs for Zuko's help. The soldiers took the boy away when he pulled the knife Zuko gave him on them when they demanded food. So Zuko promises to save him, and the entire climax acts as a clear summary for all the episode was exploring. His own mother, like this one, was trying to save her son from the machinery of their nations. The villains aren't really patriots, they're people who are exploiting the system for their own gains.
You're not soldiers. You're bullies. Freeloaders abusing your power. Mostly over women and kids. You don't want Lee in your army. You're sick cowards messing with a family who's already lost one son to the war.
And by just simply putting aside the flag and just honoring this family that has been sheltering him with no questions, he gets to be free of all of this shame. Saving this boy is about Zuko saving the boy who died inside him. But alas, Zuko embracing only one side of himself means he's ultimately incomplete. The soldiers take Zuko on and he beats their dick off. The crowd cheers on as Zuko uses his swords, but then he gets his ass beat, so he finally unleashes his powers by becoming complete when he remembers his mother saying,
Remember this, Zuko. No matter how things may seem to change, never forget who you are.
So he wakes up with his fire bending and wins. The magic in the boy's eyes is lost, and the crowd begins to turn on him.
You're not a prince, you're an outcast! His own father burned and disowned him!
Zuko doesn't answer and approaches the boy whose mother now stands between them. He tries to hand his gift back, but he doesn't take it.
You should have it.
No, I hate you!
Zuko once again experiences what's to be expected. Rejection. A continuity communicated from the episode as it cuts back to his mother leaving, his father's coronation, and as Azula smiles, Zuko looks helpless, an expression turned to weariness in the present as he leaves the village with everyone judging him. For Zuko to truly feel whole, he would need to change not just himself but his own country. For now, it is the shame of the Fire Nation that is becoming the heavier burden. This episode is really beautiful and speaks to just how damn effortless this craftsmanship is. Elizabeth Welch and Lauren McMillan are actually geniuses, and as a children's show with immensely complex, mature ideas at play, it's able to leverage the personal story of Zuko into a broader story of political sympathy. Avatar: The Last Airbender critiques the captivity genre from within in order to broaden portrayals of indigenous peoples beyond sympathy and sentimentality to account for desires and changes driven from within these cultures. This is why the show is worth studying. As if this was at any doubts, I have no idea how to end this video.
Staring at the wall, I know you really love the color. We picked it out over the phone. Remember what you said, but I could never tell the meaning. I try to see what I have been shown. Staring at the pictures now, I know they try to show me. I cannot see, but God knows I try. Believer of the mysteries, I try to find a way not to cry.
So this was the Zuko Alone video. This was a Patreon picked video because you can vote for specific characters and films for analysis, and this one won the vote. So that's cool. This one was supposed to come out last week, but I had to redraft the whole thing and add in more sources to create a more complete picture. Anyways, my Across Spider-Verse review is also on Patreon as an exclusive, and yeah, love you all and see ya.
Mine are bigger than